Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Evening Jones. Yeah, says right there on the bottom of the screen. All right. If you're watching at theeveningjones.com, what I need you to do is log in, use Twitter profile, Facebook profile, whatever you got, go ahead and use that. You can then participate in our chat room. You can also send in your questions. You type them up, I'll put them on the screen, or you got a webcam and headphones. Like I got a webcam and headphones, and we can do this, right? We will be here for about 1 hour. This weekend, I went to the scenic Rocket City of Huntsville, Alabama. Some of you know this, some of you do not, certainly, because not everybody knows all the details of my life. But my mother, for the better part of the last 19 years, was the dean of business at Alabama A&M University. And at last, my mother decided that she wanted to retire. I struggled to deal with this idea of my mother retiring, because if you know anything about my mother, she gonna find some kind of work. Like the way my daddy said, she may be retiring, but she ain't quitting, right? So anyway, they threw a retirement party, had about 200 people showed up. You know, my mother's like I said, college professor. So a former student showed up. One of her students who graduated from college in 1974 showed up. She had students showed up who came from Texas, who stayed under her Prairie View. And then, she had, of course, her church folks and everything in Alabama. And see, it was interesting. And I don't know just how similar this dynamic is for other people. Like my mother's the only mother I have, so I don't really know exactly how your mama gets down. But like my mother, we do all the complimenting of mama and everything else. Hey, mama, the dinner was good. Hey, mama, that's very nice. Hey, mama, you look nice. All those sorts of things. But at the same time, it was very refreshing to just kind of see her bathe in the affection, right? Like to bathe in the affection that people have for her. And it wasn't like a thing that was like overwrought with like nothing but just all these heartwarming stories that turns into a heavy thing and people start crying and stuff like this. Like part of what's funny is my mama sent a text that said that she wanted me and my brother to like do something like a roast. And we hit each other up and we were like, I don't feel like mama like really knows what that means. Like I was not comfortable at all with the idea of like roasting my mama in front of the people. Like you're like, nah, I don't think we're gonna do that, right? So I think we were the last two people on the program to speak, and so everybody went before us. And a woman got up to speak first, and she's a professor and associate provost at A&M. And see, I didn't know she worked at A&M. Like I saw her and I recognized her because when I was at Clark, she worked there. So I didn't really have any idea. Like she's sitting at the table with us at the front, and I don't understand how it is she decided she's gonna sit with us. Like I don't have much to do with the plan of this party. And so she gets up to, give her remarks about my mother. And she starts talking and she starts explaining how it is that before she had gotten there, that there was this big movement against adding more associate provost positions at the school, and that my mother had been the person that found that to be excessive, and it was basically the president finding jobs for his friends. And this woman didn't know any of this was going on. She just showed up and she took the job. And then she starts talking about how she's in all these meetings and my mama got all these questions for her and everything else. And like my mama was laughing the whole way. And I was so glad that my mama was laughing the whole way, because I was sitting there like, yo, what you up there saying about my mama though? And she said something about how she later got to know my mama better. And she was like, yeah, I came to see that she was not the manipulative. And then she left the blank there that I had been told that she was. And I'm like, yo, the only thing that's saving you right now is that the guest of honor seems to find this funny. So I'm like left out on the joke, because we've sitting there looking around like, yo, what's like, I don't understand this. Like, what's going on? And so as this program has gone on, like everybody's got jokes. Like everybody's got like some sort of prepared statement, and everybody has jokes. And then it's me and my brother, and we ain't got no jokes because we kind of struggled. Like we ain't really feel comfortable joking on mama like that in the way. Like I told my brother before we got there, like if they really want to do a roast, if I get up there and do some kind of roast, you'll beat me up and my sister will run out the room crying. I didn't feel like that was the heat. But little did I know, man, my mama's friends had all the jokes. One of her friends is a preacher, and she got up there and she told all the jokes about how cheap my mama is. And please understand, my mom is ridiculously cheap. And in fact, my mom is cheap in a way that belies the fact that she is a PhD in economics. Like saving money is a game for her, right? Like it's just a full on all day, everyday challenge. Like you are not going to get this money out of my pocket. It don't matter if you burn more gas getting to this cheaper gas station, right? Now, an economist would think that way, but she's not thinking like an economist. She's thinking like a competitor, right? She is thinking like this is something else to win, right? Because that's the thing. My mom's a very sweet lady, but she ain't out here about just losing. And she sure ain't out here about just losing her money. No, no, no. Like it's not going down. Like I had to explain to her, I'm trying to get the flight straight to go to Huntsville. And look, Huntsville is not easy to fly into. You got to typically fly into another airport. Like there are a few places that go direct, but you got to fly into, like, fly into Atlanta to go over there, something like that. And that makes the ticket a little bit pricier. And so I told her, I was like, well, we're going to fly straight into Huntsville. I was like, look, I got more money than I got time. You know, I'm on TV now, right? It's like I got more money than I got time. And so I'm not going to fly into Atlanta and then drive. Like my brother flew into Atlanta and then drove. I'm not doing that. And so she says to me, well, you don't have to fly into Atlanta. You could fly into Birmingham. I'm like, Mom, I'm flying into Huntsville. Huntsville. Like she doing this with my money. Like this is just how she gets down. Now, my man Peter said, "Do you think like an economist like your mom, dude? You might want to look up my resume." But yeah, like it was that. But like it's real cool to see your mother in a situation where, at least for me, that I never think of it as like she said that anybody that's ever passed through a class or anything else like that is her child in effect. And so I've never thought of her as being all these other people's mothers. And I think in part, perhaps because of being territorial about the fact that she is actually my mother. But when you get a chance to like really look and see the way that other people value your parents and like the impact that they've had on other people's lives, like that's a wild thing to see, man. Because, you know, I mean, I'm not saying this because it's my parents. Like you can ask people who might be in this chat room right now. Like my parents are pretty incredible for a number of reasons, but like my parents are pretty incredible. And I remember I went when my father retired. Well, the first time he retired in like 2002. And I went to represent a family at a retirement ceremony. And I realized once I got there and listened to everybody else, like my parents apparently are the most modest people on planet Earth because I simply didn't understand like the significance of the roles that they had played in other people's lives. Like when I went to my aunt's funeral, my mother and my aunt were very involved in the sit-in movements at Oklahoma City. My mother was at the front of those. And like I'm there and I'm hearing about it. And I just really stopped and thought about it. Like, man, my mom ain't really out here like trying to claim credit for nothing when she deserves all the credit in the world for all these things. Like my pops is the same exact way. I'm not. Like perhaps I might have like some similarities to them on this front, but I acknowledge that these are like not things that are that it ain't exactly me. Like I get that. And so there's a certain level of good fortune that I realized I have. Like I won the parental lottery. I tell people that all the time. It's not simply a genetic lottery. Like I won the parental lottery. Like I won on the people and who they are. That's in my, that are in my life, and I can't think of how it possibly could have turned out better for me. And I know that it couldn't have really turned out better for me because I look at how well it turned out for people who just happened to like be in her classes. I will say this though, man. One cat told a story, man, and I didn't know how I felt about the idea that he telling the story about my mama at the thing, and I came away from the story like, I kind of feel like mom's is being a jerk. And what he said was he came down to his second semester senior year, and all he's got left is electives. And so he got all the play electives on the page, right? All the play electives. And he said he took it to my mom. and she wouldn't sign it. She would not sign it. Man, she had that dude out here taking a class in research methodology and like all this other stuff. Like she had that cat out here actually taking real class the second semester senior year. Like she did that. And he talked about how, like he was better off for it because the classes he took wound up coming up here and there and everything else. And I was listening to that like, man, I might have had to sign that for her under those circumstances. Like, I'm glad it worked out for you and it made your life better, homie. But man, I was actually on your side in that story. I didn't feel like you need to come around and talk about how good it was for you. She was kind of being difficult there. I have to like fully acknowledge, like, you ain't about to mess up second semester senior year. That's disrespectful. He also talked about how, because he taught like, he said that he was at Clark. He graduated in 74. So I think he said he had my mom either his freshman year or his sophomore year, which is my mother in her late 20s. And he was talking about how beautiful my mother was and how they all thought they were going to get over on her because she was a professor and she was beautiful. And I'm like, man, I can't go to none of these things without these cats talking about how hot they thought my mama was, man. Like, I went to my grandmama's funeral and some dude talked about, coming over to see Miss Posey at the house, but they were really coming over to see Faye and Barbara. I'm like, yo, homie, you need to slow your roll. We sitting right here, bro. We sitting right here. Like, just because my daddy wasn't there for that funeral don't mean we won't come up and handle business. Please believe that. Got to be done. But yeah, man, my mother is now retired. We're going to see what she ultimately winds up doing. I'm just glad she's doing some things for herself. Because one interesting thing about my parents and their dynamic is my parents have been married for 52 years. They have been married for 52 years. They live in different places now for 20 and change because of job stuff. But my mom, moved to Huntsville for this job in Alabama, and Huntsville's right up her alley. She really likes Huntsville, and I think it's really like she is someone who she grew up in Oklahoma City, so she's somebody who grew up in a city of about that size and has its own independent personality, perhaps an inflated sense of how urban it actually is, all of those things. And I've come to understand as I've gotten older in life that one thing for women in marriage is they sacrifice a bit of their identity. You think about it in theory, like you give up your name to get into this in a lot of cases. And so women often go from being whoever they are to being someone's wife once they get married. And so she had 19 years in Huntsville and that's her life. She's nobody's wife in Huntsville. I mean, she's married to my father and they know it, but her identity there is not like tied to being somebody's wife. Like she got a life, she got a situation, she got a things. And it was just interesting to kind of think about it, be in a room with your mother. And I think for those of you who have, parents who are married, I don't know if this is something you necessarily thought about, but it's very interesting to be somewhere where it is all about your mother, because very little is ever all about anybody's wife. And so like I really felt good for her in that way to really see and like get a look, with my kind of improved sensibilities and understanding on a lot of these topics. Like to see her have her thing, see her have her life and things she enjoys and her friends, and all of that. Like that's a real dope thing to see. So, I think most of us, we don't really get a chance to like actually and truly see our mothers in their own like environments. And it's something that is, particular to themselves in their own. So that was dope. Also dope was they asked my daddy to get up and give a toast. And my daddy said, I only know one toast. And Barbara told me not to do it here. That's the Joneses for you. All right. Moving on to your questions. Were your feelings hurt that Amy Schumer blocked you? Yeah, so like apparently Amy Schumer, like some Amy Schumer tweets were bouncing around or something like that. And I couldn't see it at first. And the reason I couldn't see it at first is apparently Amy Schumer had blocked me, which is very interesting because like I am vaguely aware of Amy Schumer's existence on planet Earth. Right. But I don't know. I don't follow her work. I had no reason to be like seriously mad at her. Like I do remember, and somebody ultimately found it, and they found this tweet that I'd sent about some piece that somebody had written about Amy Schumer. And I said something, about a point that was made in it. And apparently that was enough for Amy Schumer to block me. Now, the thing is, I ain't the one that can really be out here saying too much about blocking people. I block people for good reasons. I block people for bad reasons. I block people for no reasons on Twitter because sometimes I just don't feel like it. Like, I don't want to hear anything else that you have to say. And I don't feel like you have to explain to anybody why you don't feel like hearing anything else that somebody has got to say. Like, if you don't want to hear them, boom, done. Like, you get to do that. I mean, it's not necessarily a big deal. It doesn't necessarily make you sensitive or thin-skinned. You just don't feel like hearing whatever nonsense it is that somebody's got. Like, a friend of mine was telling me about a friend of his who said something about how, it's obvious that, you got to be careful. Don't let those people on Twitter get to you. I'm like, dude, you don't really understand. I promise you that they don't get to me. Because they're strangers, like they don't know me. Like it's not a thing, right? I just don't feel like listening to you anymore. I don't feel like popping off at you, whatever it is. But like, ain't nobody really altering my like self-concept or anything like that. Like, it's just not, it's not that sort of thing. So I get it. You can like block me and not, have some major problem with me. The only thing is, I just wish I would have got my money's worth. Like, that's it. I just wish I would have got my money's worth. Like, if she was going to block me, I wish I'd said something far more memorable than whatever I said. And by far more memorable, I mean, at the very least, memorable enough that I would remember it. Like, there are a couple of people who have blocked me. And or I could be like, yeah, I got my money's worth. Like, I don't blame you. You decided you didn't want to hear from me no more. That's cool. That's cool. I wouldn't want to hear from me no more either. Right. And not even from a self-aggrandizing, like I was killing that dude sort of sense, even though sometimes I was like killing them dudes, but hey, man, sometimes that's what it's got to be. Appreciate the question. See what we got here. Bruh, are you seriously concerned about climate change living in Miami? I mean, like, I'm concerned about climate change, but the living in Miami part is kind of minor on that. I rent here. I don't own. Like, I don't plan for them to bury me here. Appreciate the question. Let's see what else we got here. Did Kanye have a point when he complained about Jay-Z not visiting his house after Kim got robbed? All right, so apparently Kanye went all Kanye at a show and started venting about his friendship with Jay-Z, which apparently isn't really a friendship. Like, that seems to be what it is. It seems that like Jay-Z is cool with this dude, and I'm sure has some like level of professional appreciation for the fact that Kanye propelled Jay's career to a whole nother place. Right? Like, I'm sure he feels that way. But all we got here is, for one reason or another, Jay don't really rock with the dude. Like, Kanye thinks they're really close. Kanye thinks Jay is his big brother. Jay apparently doesn't feel the same way. And I feel like Kanye should have known exactly what the score is in 2013. And why he should have known what the score was in 2013, because 2013 was when Kanye was trying to put that Yeezus out. And 2 days before Yeezus is supposed to hit the street, Jay-Z does that Samsung ad for Magna Carta. Right? It drops on Sunday. I think it's like Sunday. It was during the NBA Finals. He dropped it. And suddenly all we talking about is Magna Carta. Now, granted, neither of those albums were that good. Neither was that good. But it was supposed to be Kanye's time to shine. And Jay was like, anyway, I'm going to sell these phones and I'm going to sell these records. And I just think that right then and there is when Kanye should have recognized, yo, bro, he doesn't rock with you like that. He just doesn't. So on one level, I understand having your feelings hurt by all of this. But on another level, man, you can't complain about it. You just got to recognize, man, he ain't your homie like you want him to be your homie. I suppose it happens to the best of us. Appreciate the question. Let's see what. Whoa, 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 whoa. So Tyler Perry is planning on making a Medea movie about police brutality. What purpose does this serve? And I need somebody to get in the chat room right now and tell me that he's making this shit up. Right? This can't possibly be true. Wait. He's not making this up. So what you're saying to me here is Tyler Perry is going to make a movie about police brutality centered. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, he wants to. But guys, here's what you have to remember. He owns his own studio. If he wants to make it, it's going to get made. So what purpose does this serve? It'll make Tyler Perry some money. Right? Like, that's the purpose. It'll make Tyler Perry some money. My questions are, and look, I don't judge people who enjoy Tyler Perry's movies and everything. It's not my speed. It's a bit heavy-handed for me. But if that's what you want to do, then that's what you want to do. And clearly he has struck a chord because he has a fairly sizable audience. And I mean, I think there's parts of his work that are problematic, but I don't think his work is ultimately destructive. Like, I think a lot of his gender stuff is real messed up in there. Like, you can basically, tell who the whole plot of the movie going to be based on whether the woman light skinned or dark, right? But I mean, I don't think he's destructive. But we can't go see this. And by we, I mean everybody. We can't go see this. No way. No way in the world. Cannot be done. Wow. So what's the plot going to be? They're going to try to beat up Medea, then Medea going to pistol whip him, and Medea... Okay, so I have to admit, I think Tyler Perry does a fairly good job playing Medea. I think Medea is probably the best character anything that he's got. However, if it's a police brutality movie and it's about Medea, maybe the title of it will be Medea got shot by the cops and died in the street. And then those of you who hate the Tyler Perry movies wouldn't have to deal with the idea of Medea anymore. See? I don't expect Tyler Perry to be making any sort of earth-shattering social commentary, but I feel like that might work for your goals. And somebody says, she's like, we're not talking about killing no real person, man. We're talking about killing a character. Characters get killed all the time. The only time I've ever celebrated a real person getting shot was when Stringer Bell got shot. That was beautiful. Glorious, in fact. Appreciate the question. Now, this is, I think, an interesting one that ties to something we talked about a second ago. How do you manage your social media consumption so it can both be meaningful and fun without getting burned out by the trolls? All right, let me send this now. I don't want to start answering this before I give some people a chance to share who may want to, check out the show. Because I do think that is a very interesting question. Like, how do you enjoy consuming social media without getting caught up in all of the other stuff? And so the thing for me is I was on social media. Like, I got on Twitter and because really when people talk about quote unquote social media, they're really talking about Twitter, right? Like, that's the one. They're not talking about the whole thing. Like, there aren't that many other places where people just full on harass you like that. Like, they're talking about Twitter. And so I got on Twitter when I was doing middays in Raleigh. And I mean, I wasn't anybody worth discussing, right? Like, I remember Bill Simmons put me on his Follow Friday one time and I got 1,000 new followers. And the 1,000 new followers were got me up to 5 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's that long ago. So I was just like consuming it, and I was existing on social media just like everybody else was. And then I got on TV. And then once I got on TV, then I started like encountering all these crazy people who would say all these crazy things. And I just found it hilarious. You know, like I understood, like I'd done enough radio and written for enough outlets to understand. Like the thing you learn, the thing you learn when you write and people have these emails that they can send to you, you learn how many people who email you haven't like actually read what it is that you're saying. Like they read a little bit and then they draw whatever conclusion that they want from what you've written. So you'll wind up with people saying how much they love your article, and then you get to the end of it and you realize, holy shit, they're not talking about the article I wrote because I didn't say any of those things. And sometimes you say to people, they get so mad and you realize they just didn't read anything else. Like you learn to filter through the things that people say to you to realize what matters and what doesn't. So I'd already had that. And then I did local radio. So I dealt with all the phone calls. I dealt with all the people calling me a racist and this, that, and third. Like I'd already been down that road. So I dealt with those things in a way where, I mean, just because of how I'm wired, like ain't none of that messing up my self-concept. Like how I feel about myself is totally separate from what anybody else will say in these circumstances. That's just not how it works. Like I have people whose opinions I value, but it's not just strangers, you know, like when I first started doing the TV show, Dan and I would talk about like the way that I was received. And he talked about like some of the things that friends of his would say about the way they received me. And I told him, I'm like, look, man, I don't know what to do with this because I don't know who the people are. Right. And since I don't know who the people are, then I don't know how seriously I'm supposed to take them. Like I'm not just taking the word of somebody that I don't know about how horrible I am. I mean, I'm just not. But people really believe like this is their chance. Like Twitter makes the world smaller where you can reach out and touch these people, right? You can reach out and, you know, they can hear you scream at them or whatever it is. And so people do it. And I'm just like, wow, this is really crazy because I'm just kind of fascinated by this glimpse into the human condition. But the question was, how do I like consume social media and not get burned out by the trolls? It's easy. I block the trolls. And in fact, you might get caught up in the blocking because you sound a little bit too much like a troll. And if I get it wrong, have a nice life. Like this ain't that big a deal to neither one of us. But I manage my social media feed by knocking out the people I don't feel like hearing from. Now, the part that I think throws some people off about this is, if I say that I don't feel like hearing from you anymore, it is not simply because you disagree with me. It's just a matter of not wanting to hear from them anymore. So there are people I disagree with that I have discussions with, like, you know, and there are people who are cool with me with whom I disagree, and we go back and forth very frequently, right? There's plenty of them. But I ain't got to listen to you. Like, you are not entitled to my opinion. Simple as that. You are not entitled to my attention. I don't have to give it to you. And so get them up out of there. And then I'm able to still tweet with my friends and see the stuff they talk about and everything else. That's pretty much it. Appreciate the question. Let's see what we got here. Best Prince album based on guitar playing. I've been listening to a lot of Prince's self-titled album lately, especially Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad. Now, the self-titled album does have a lot of really good guitar work on it, but I don't think there's any question which Prince album has the best guitar work. And the Prince album that has the best guitar work is Purple Rain. Like, if you want to know why it is that Purple Rain is so damn successful, it's the Prince album with the best guitar work, right? Like, I mean, the guitar work is what makes this a rock and roll album in the eyes of a lot of people, and thereby made it more universally accessible because there's a lot of hard, crushing rock guitar on there. I mean, what people will call rock guitar, rather. And that's what gets people in it. But let's think about this. Purple Rain has 9 tracks, right? Purple Rain has 9 tracks. How many of them involve something boss on the guitar? Let's go track by track. Let's Go Crazy got a boss solo. The Beautiful Ones got a dope solo. Computer Blue is a guitar masterpiece. Nicki got some boss guitar work on it. When Doves Cry, the best Prince guitar song of all the guitar songs. It is the great guitar anthem that gets forgotten as a guitar anthem because he only plays it on like this 6-minute song for like roughly a minute 30 or something like that. I Would Die For You, not really. Baby, I'm a Star, not so much. Purple Rain, monster guitar track. So let's count that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're talking about 6 out of the 9 tracks are really like built around that guitar. I don't think any of the other Prince albums come close. Like I know people talk about Chaos and Disorder as being a really good Prince guitar album, and I haven't listened to Chaos and Disorder is so long. So like I'm not in the greatest position to answer whether or not that's accurate or not. Sign of the Times. All right, so like the title track of Sign of the Times has some pretty good guitar work. Hot Things got some pretty good guitar work. You Got the Look. I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man is a monster on there. The Cross, I think the guitar works good, but I don't think it's great. But yeah, God, I could do this all day long. Cannot believe that dude is dead. Simply cannot believe that dude is dead. Now, I see my man P. Deezy says he had to come around on Computer Blue, but I love that one now. I think the hard part about coming around on Computer Blue is, for one, it's in between The Beautiful Ones and Darling Nikki on the album. So I think that it's easy for people to skip. Number 2, it is random and all over the place. Number 3, it is positioned in the movie as if it just makes no sense at all. Like it's the song in the movie that you're really not supposed to like. Like you're supposed to be turned off by how crass Nikki is, but you're just not supposed to like what Computer Blue is. And Computer Blue is monster. Like if you wanted to make an argument outside of When Doves Cry that Computer Blue is the best guitar song in the catalog, I wouldn't be upset with it. I really would not. My man Robinson said, how did Prince get away with When Doves Cry as a #1 single? And the answer is simple. The second that the track starts, it jumps out of the speaker. The second it does. So like I think the argument that people have about it being so shocking that it was a #1 single is the fact that it doesn't have a bass line. What gets missed is the fact that you ignore the fact that it doesn't have a bass line. Never mind the fact that it has a kick, but the kick is not an 808. But the way the drums are so it gives you a groove, like it gives you all of that. But the way that it works is that guitar work is just so dope, and that riff on the keys is perfect. And it's absolutely flawless. Absolutely flawless. I just can't imagine like what it has to be to have in your mind that you can do that, and the fact that he caught lightning in a bottle to record that intro on When Doves Cry. Because I've seen him do When Doves Cry live a few times, and it was all, I have seen, he's dead. I saw him do When Doves Cry live a handful of times. And the problem is he always had to play a tape with it. He can't even play that. He can't even guarantee he can play that intro again. That's how monster it was. Appreciate the question. Let me see what else we got. In the midst of the Drake and Cudi beef, do you think Drake went too far, and what is considered crossing the line in a rap if there is such a line? Well, there's crossing the line everywhere, right? And you generally find out you crossed the line when the line was to put them hands on you. Jay-Z felt like he crossed the line with the condoms in the baby seat line in Super Ugly. Like I think everybody's got one when they feel like the line's crossed. The one, was it MC Shed or was it Kara, whichever side? Yeah, Kara's one. I think talking about getting red alert at the crack house. I think that people thought that line was going too far. And the thing with Drake and Cudi is I don't even know if people feel like that was a matter of going too far as much as that was in like legitimately poor taste. And if you're going to do something in a battle that's in legitimately poor taste, the line better be doper than that. Because that's the thing. The line wasn't dope. Like you just seemed like you were picking on them. Like, that's it. Like, so my man Josh in the chat room said, Pac talked about Prodigy having sickle cell. The thing about him talking about Prodigy having sickle cell is that was hilarious. Like, I understand it was in poor taste, right? It's not cool to laugh at the man for having sickle cell. But the fact is, like, don't he got sickle cell or something like that? He have a seizure, a heart attack messing with me. It's the fact that he couldn't even remember what the dude had and then didn't even know what sickle cell does to people. He just randomly starts throwing this stuff out there. Right? Like, that's hilarious. And I don't even like that song, but I do get to that part. I'm like, why is this funny? Like, I don't like the fact that this is funny, right? Like, Pop was so completely out of control on that song. That's the thing. That's a diss record that's just totally out of control. And so he was so completely out of control that he's like, oh, yeah, while I'm at it, don't you have sickle cell? And no one in the studio was like, yo, we should probably cut that. Like, we should probably. Nope. Nobody felt that way. Nobody felt that way. But when Drake said the thing about Cudi and being in the facility or whatever, I was just like, damn, dog, the reason this is messed up is because the dude can't get out and say nothing to you. Like, it almost felt like you waited till he left, like he transferred to another school. Like, that's the part that got me about it. Because let me tell you something, I'm not really here for a Drake Cudi beef. That just sounds way more emotional than I want to do. I'm not here. I'm not here for that lane. I'm not here for that lane. Now, somebody says I think Drake recorded it way before Cudi announced that he went to rehab. Okay, that's cool. But then once you know it, you got to pull it back. Once you know it, you got to pull it back. And yes, Brian is correct. Drake clowning people for being emotional. That is, yeah, there's that. Now we have another question that is on a related topic. Can Pusha T diss Drake again while on this politicalish tour? And I mean, I feel like if you are attaching yourself to Pusha T, the least of your concerns is that he might drop a diss record. Like, he's the dude who does the Coke records, and you got him on board. I don't feel like dissing Drake is the part that makes you be like, hey, hold on now. I think this is an unprofessional representation for somebody that's supposed to be working the campaign. I, by the way, am still not certain that Drake was talking about Pusha T. I'm not. And the reason I'm not certain that Drake is talking about Pusha T is I just can't believe he's that stupid. Like, I can't believe that his ego would have gotten to that point where he thought that was a good idea. Can't see it. Can't see it. He does not want those problems. He really does. Appreciate the question. Let's see what else we got here. How petty will Future be now that Russell and Ciara are expected? I'm so damn tired of all of them. Like, all of them. Look, man, Ciara and Russell appear to be happy, right? They appear to be happy. Like, I looked up on Facebook the other day, and I was engaged once, and I saw the woman that I was once engaged to is married and apparently just had a child. And I'm like, yo, good for you, because you appear to be happy. Because we wasn't going to be happy together. I feel like that's how Future needs to be looking at this. Y'all ain't going to be happy together. So why you tripping? Like, seriously, why you tripping? And so the cats that are so emotionally involved in this, like Russell Wilson, Ciara thing, like there's men and women that are so involved. And like, I do think that there's a significant number of women that dealt with dudes that wasn't about nothing. And then they see Ciara when it got her a good man. Man treats you right, go church. He gets you a good man, girl. I do think there are people who relate to the fact that she went out there and she got herself a good man. And then there's a bunch of dudes, I think, who relate with being a dude that wasn't about nothing, who then lost their woman and now mad that she happy with somebody. People I want to hear from, okay? People I want to hear from that I feel like we don't hear enough from is the dudes that are the particular kind of lane that Russell Wilson is, who now understand that within the context of that lane, they can get themselves a Ciara too. Right? Because there has to be some herbs out here that are like, so you're saying that I can have someone who looks like that? I don't have to keep dating these mediocre looking women anymore. Because can we all be honest? None of us, I repeat, none of us thought that would be the type of woman Russell Wilson will wind up with. None of us. I mean, we've seen his wife before. She doesn't remind me of Sierra at all. Like, this is not where we thought that it would go. But we seen Russell. She had Russell out there wearing, picking out fashionable clothes for him. He showed up on the red carpet with like holes in his jeans and zippers in his jacket and all this stuff. Right? All that. Whole game done changed. And you're not going to convince me that there ain't no Herb somewhere in no private school that isn't looking up and being like, gonna see that Sierra type that go to another school and be like, I can do that. So somebody say on here something about Future's money isn't as long as Russell's. Future's money is not in the same, like, no. It ain't there. Like, I'd imagine right now, because Russ just got paid for the first time, there's a good chance that Sierra's still picking up the check, but not for long. I can't imagine how tired she got of paying for Future. Like, one thing, we can't forget this about Future. Future hadn't been on for that long. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but Future's only been on for like 4 years and change. Future got on in 2012. So when was Sierra dealing with Future? And Future got all them kids? It sounded to me like Sierra was indulging old broke ass Future for quite a long time. Like, I don't think that nearly enough is made of the fact that Sierra gave that old broke dude a chance. Because man, listen here. Appreciate the question. Let me see what we got here. Best party music era, the 70s, the 80s, or the 90s? I think the answer to this question is easily the 1990s. And I know that a lot of you are probably thinking I'm saying that the 1990s were the best era for party music because of hip hop. And I mean, yes, to a degree, hip hop, it plays a role in me having the discussion, but it's really not about the hip hop. It's about the booty shake. Like the 90s. I mean, we all agree, right? That's like prime booty shake time. Prime booty shake time, right? Prime Luke time. Prime Atlanta bass time. That's when it was popping. And then we got the New Orleans bounce that started popping up. And then that New Orleans bounce went national with it. Come on, man. Y'all know what time it is. It's the 90s. Now, look, all these other eras had great party music, but none of them specifically made them put their hands on their knees and pop that thing. And I mean, what makes a party better than that? Help me help you. Appreciate the question. Let me see what else you got here. Need some more questions, guys. What is the legacy of New Jack Swing? So New Jack Swing is interesting. I forget who it was I saw talking about this once, where they said that, like, as much as people love that neo soul era and how it harkened back to this, that, and third and everything else, they make the point that New Jack Swing was a much more significant movement because it was a legitimate, like, where neo soul was like going back to try to go forward. New Jack Swing was like breaking almost entirely new ground, like it is a lot of the ethos rap, but still by and large, we're talking about singing. Like it's really a fascinating era to look at going back. And it wasn't really my heat at the time when it was out. So it's kind of fun for me now to retrospectively go look at New Jack Swing, but also New Jack Swing is kind of the lead in to this era we have now where, okay, so here's my thing with New Jack Swing. This is the best way for me to encapsulate it. what made the New Jack Swing stuff dope, and even if you want to talk about like that Mary J. Blige Hip Hop Soul is the record label that made her the queen of hip hop soul. So now all of a sudden we got a whole new thing, right? It's amazing the power the record labels have on those sorts of things. The thing about Mary J. Blige or like that, what's the 411 album and the New Jack Swing stuff is they weren't trying to be rappers. So like even with a song like Poison, yeah, there's the part that's rap, but when they're singing, they're still like singing about, it sounds like a song to be sung. And now these cats sound like they only singing because they can't rap. And like there's a cognitive dissonance that I have there because of my sensibilities when all this came together. It's just like, yo, man, I can't do that. Like I simply cannot do that. But yeah, it's good stuff. New Jack Swing, that is, not the other stuff. Appreciate the question. Let me see what else you got here. You listen to the Solange album. Is it any good? So I did get around to listening to the Solange album. I checked it out on Spotify, listened to it a couple times in the car. I think the last time I did a show, somebody was talking about the Solange album. And they said that Solange did the best album that the Knowles family has ever released. And I'm like, yo, you need to calm down. Like, you need to calm down. The Solange album made Lemonade. Lemonade is a tour de force. The Solange album is pretty interesting. And you have to understand this about me. For me to say that an album is interesting, I don't know if compliment is the right term to use, but I don't find a lot of things to necessarily be interesting. Like I listen to it, I think about what it is that she's got going aesthetically. She also has some very interesting things going on that album with regards to the drums, where it's some dope analog sounding stuff, and then some also really dope digital sounding stuff. It kind of bounces between them. Like sonically, I think it's very interesting. I think the Master P interludes were cool to drop in there. Wasn't that her daddy that she had on there? Was that Matthew that was talking about, the anger he had growing up and all of that stuff? Her mama jumping on there and stuff like that. Like I thought that it was a very thoughtfully constructed album, right? Like I thought that it was an album that felt like it was made by somebody who didn't need the money. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it felt like it was somebody who didn't need the money. And I find it to be I think it's creative. I think it's cool. I think she sings better than I remember her singing, because God knows the last time I paid any attention to go like listen to like Solange sing or anything like that. But it's a good record. Like I'll probably check it out a few more times. I'd be curious to hear it in vinyl, because I think that it has a sound that would transfer well, over pretty well to the analog space. But this isn't like one of the greatest records I've ever heard. I think I talked to somebody who said, look, it's the right album for the right time. And I do believe that that's the case. Like for the day that it came out, like forget about just these weeks, this era, whatever it is, like the day that it came out, it was an album that people needed that day. And again, I think it's worth checking out. Appreciate the question. Let me see what we got here. How excited are you for the era of Prince vault releases? Not at all. Not at all. If stuff comes out and it's halfway decent, and people I trust say it's okay, then I'll check it out. But look, man, like I wasn't at this point where Prince died and I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to get a new Prince album again. I haven't needed a new Prince album in quite a while, right? There haven't been that many Prince albums recently that have had me like, oh my God, I'm so glad that Prince put out this new album. Like, that's not why I'm here. Like, the glory days are gone in that regard. And so I have an attachment to him, but I didn't need any new music from Prince. How much more? I mean, do you realize how much Prince music I haven't heard? You know, like I go through like the MP3 folder and everything else, and I have so many Prince songs that I have never listened to. Like I want to get around to, and I just haven't listened to because there's so much stuff, and like you're gonna try to throw more on top of it. Now, if you wanted to hit me with some like unreleased mixes or early versions of songs I love, okay, I check that. Like, for example, he tried When Doves Cry with the bass and it didn't work. If somebody had the When Doves Cry that he tried to do with the bass, I'd like to hear that. Like, those are the things that I think that I would like to hear. But so much other stuff has just been out there, and it's so out there that I just don't need anything else. I don't need the money grabs that are going to come. I don't know who in the world you trust to mix the things in Prince's vault. I have no idea. None whatsoever. Appreciate the question. Let me see. Thoughts on proposing at a Danny Brown concert? Did somebody actually do that? No, really. Did somebody do that? Like as many of you know, I think Danny Brown, like say what you want about Danny Brown, man. Danny Brown can rap his ass off. Like absolutely rap his ass off. He is so talented. Like you just wish he could hold it together because he's such a good rapper. However, I became aware of Danny Brown's existence when he was performing on stage and a woman performed fellatio on him, like while he rapped. And all I'll say is if a setting is appropriate for that first thing, then it is not appropriate for a proposal. Does that seem fair? Because I think that seems fair. Appreciate the question. Next one. Do you think Crit will prosper more as an independent artist? And I guess the question that I would have there is, what exactly do you mean by prosper? Because I think that he's decided that there's a lane that he wants to go in with his music, and that lane ain't never going to sell no 3 million copies or whatever it is, but it's a consistent lane, and he can eat off that lane, and he can make the music that he wants to make. And so to me, if he can make the music that he wants to make and make enough money to make it worth his while to do that through whatever setup he has independently, then yeah, he'll prosper. Then absolutely. But like he signed with Def Jam, and signing with Def Jam was a good look. But the thing about Crit in the Def Jam stuff was he never got that one single. He never had the single. Like, I think he's still capable of doing really incredible work, but he never got that big single. And like, I thought I Got This would wind up being the simple because it'd be the single because it had a hook that could easily be repeated, like the Heat screaming that after they won a championship, right? But he never had the single. And there are a lot of careers that are like that, where it's a great catalog, but he never had the single. Like, dude's talking about country shit. I'm like, yeah, country shit was dope, but country shit is like 2010. Like, I'm talking about once he got to the Def Jam part, between Live from the Underground and what's the other one called? Cadillactica. The single isn't there. Now, Live from the Underground, of all the Crit projects, is probably my least favorite, but like Cadillactica goes hard. Doesn't have the single. But he'll be able to make this work for a long time, man, because he's got the bass. He got a bass that's going to keep showing up at shows and stuff like that. It might not be the biggest shows, but they're going to show. And if you're doing work that you're happy with, then that's what it is. So will he prosper more? I bet he'll be happier. I don't know how much money he was actually making while he was on Def Jam, but I bet he'll be happy. Appreciate the question. I'm a man here as you feel the same reservations about the new Bowie album as with the Prince Vault stuff. And no, I don't have the same reservations about a new Bowie album because the last Bowie album was a monster. It was a monster. I feel like it's been like the last two Bowie albums. Yeah, the Black Star joint and the New Day. Like, we got two Bowie albums recently, and they were both monster. So, I mean, I'll check it out. Like, the difference for me, assuming it's a new Bowie album. If it's a Bowie album that's just going way back in the vault, then I'm not here for it. If it's like new stuff that Bowie's been working on recently, then cool. But and this is interesting to consider, and I don't know what exactly to make of this, but I mean, those last two Bowie albums are better than pretty much anything Prince has done in like the last 15 years, at least, right? So it is very interesting that somehow David Bowie could still make good, like, even the stuff that feels kind of like old Bowie stuff has a freshness to it that the recent Prince stuff just hasn't had, which is not about knocking Prince, but just makes you look at David Bowie and just be like, oh my God, dude, you're incredible. And man, here says I like Black Star more than Musicology. I did like Musicology a lot, but I think I like Black Star more. Like, I think Musicology is an interesting, like, kind of time and place record because it's Prince in this kind of reminiscent mode and thinking about like the 70s and all those times, whatever it was. But at the same time, it also kind of feels like Prince almost his old man because, like, oh, y'all don't even sing about love no more. We sing about love all the time, right? Meanwhile, Bowie's putting out a new album being like, yeah, I'm inspired by Kendrick Lamar. And it's not that Prince hasn't been inspired by like hip hop and stuff and the modern people or whatever it is, but Musicology is an album that's really kind of about how the old heads used to know how to do it. And these young kids ain't as dope as we are. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on the Evening Jones. We're going to try to do this here once a week. My man, Lance Gilliam, handles everything behind the scenes. Thank you, sir. Hope to see you guys next week. Remember, if you can't catch us live, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the iTunes Store, subscribe at Stitcher, check us on SoundCloud, and also at the Google Play Store. Talk to you guys soon. Take it easy.